Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all our fans and friends. This is Michael Virardi with another episode of Jumpstart Monday. This is a very special episode because we have a very special guest. I'm going to be coming in just a little while to let you know all about our special guest. We're broadcasting live from LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you just join us, please be so kind to share this episode so we can get more people on our live show. Today is all about leadership, and let me start by introducing our special guest. Our special guest is Stamoulakatos. He's the general manager for Greece, Portugal, and international markets in the Sarantis group. Just to know, Sarantis has over 2,600 employees active in more than 100 countries with subsidiaries in 11 and 4 production facilities. They're in the fast-moving consumer goods and in the consumer healthcare sector. Christoforos has been a senior executive with over 20 years of experience. He has joined Sarantis in the last 3 years from Johnson & Johnson, where he was the managing director for West Africa and a member of the board for the Sub-Saharan cluster. I had the good fortune to meet Christoforos in person. I consider him to be a great individual and an amazing leader because he has managed to unify his team together and make progress in difficult years. Having said that, allow me to bring Christoforos on stage. Christoforos, good morning, and hope you're doing well.
Good morning, Michael. I'm so glad to be here with you. I mean, I've been following the Jumpstart Monday. It's a great initiative, and I'm truly honored to be here with you and have the opportunity to discuss such an important topic, transformational leadership. Thank you.
Likewise, Christoforos, thank you for joining us from Athens. Let me say to everyone who's watching in that the show is divided into 2 parts. I'm going to be asking Christoforos a few questions that I believe you will find very interesting. You can apply also what he says into your own business. And then I will open it up for questions. So if you do have a question, please send it in and Christoforos will be more than happy to answer your questions. So Christoforos, first question, what defines you from your childhood years? Is there something that defines you from your childhood years?
Yeah, that's a challenging one to start with. But yes, look, maybe it's a good opportunity to share a story, a personal story about it. My mother used to call me manager. She hasn't been in the business, so she's not familiar with the terms since I was 5 years old. So last year, when we had a gathering on Christmas Eve, and there were some friends discussing about the career progression and the things we do in the business, so she was observing and she was listening attentively, I would say. So someone asked him, tell us about Chris, very similar question to the one that you just made. And she said, look, it was obvious. I mean, you were seeing Christoforos coming out of the corner and a bunch of kids were following him. But she explained about this, he was the organizer. He was the one who organized the other kids for the neighborhood games, for the sports activities, for the school trips later. So I think what's really defining me is, on a humorous note though, that I was the organizer. On the other hand, I would say that I didn't have a fantastic childhood, meaning that there were some life challenges. I grew up having a severe asthma, so I tried to manage it in order to be competitive in the sports. I really like sports, basketball in particular. So I had to find my way and, to anticipate, to be proactive with my resources, meaning my medicines and all this stuff. Later on, it's not childhood, but it was just before the exams for the university, I lost my father. So yes, it was an unfortunate event, but on the other hand, I had to step up and find my way to support my family, who actually was suffering both, emotionally, but also financially. So that's a summary of my childhood. I think more or less this is what has defined me as a person in terms of going back to the past.
It's good to know. I'm sorry about your father. And having seen you live on stage and also here, I never noticed that you do have asthma or any breathing difficulties. I find you quite cool. So the medicine must have worked its magic.
I manage.
Christoforos, you are leading a company of turning over 500 million. So my question to you is, what are the most important skills that one must develop in order to become a successful leader?
Yeah, I think I have to separate. I mean, it's more important to separate the concept of a successful team leader or whatever. It's more about, I will change the order and I will say that the leader of successful teams, that's the objective. So the leader, I mean, as an individual, what I really feel that if you have the privilege to be called leader, that by definition means that you have reached a milestone. A critical milestone in identifying yourself, your true self, and your true self is in serving others. So you are there to serve others, to make your team successful. The teams, when it comes to successful teams, people need a predictable leader. They used to say that the boards and the investors need a steady hand, but the people need a predictable leader, a person who can trust. And in my view, the most important thing when it comes to that is that in the business context, at least, but in life as well, is that they have to actually they trust someone who has insightfulness, a good judgment, if I may say, someone who is able to drive, to lead the team to a place with a higher probability of success. That's what it is. That's what it's about. Of course, this is not happen. This cannot happen overnight. Okay, it takes time. Needs a bit of reflection. Needs to learn from your mistakes. You need instinct. You need to know how much you need to trust your. You should trust your instinct at the end of the day. You need an end-to-end understanding. You need many things. But insightfulness, I would say it's quite important. On the other hand, you have to be fair. And many people call it, in the business context, procedural justice. And it's a very relevant term because we are living in the era of diversity and inclusion. So people have to know that you are fair when it comes to the decision making. And this is quite important because people believe also that everything has to do with the execution. No, it's what happens early. If the decision is fair, if people feel that they have participated in the right manner, they have been heard. And the other important thing I would say is the competency, to be competent, the know-how. So, and yes, you cannot be great in every aspect. You can't. You need people to help you, to support you. On the other hand, the leader, the true leader, has a natural need to develop himself. It's beyond personal development. It's to develop yourself for the greater good, for your team, to be able to provide with information, with latest trends, with the latest knowledge, in order to be able to win. And all this stuff, all these skills, Michael, needs stamina, needs endurance, needs strength. And so the leader is important to be successful, to keep himself healthy, mentally, physically, spiritually. You have to take care of yourself before take care of other people.
This was one of the best replies we got up to now at Jumpstart Monday, very conclusive, and you have touched upon many things. Probably this is the reason why you also have enrolled at INSEAD at this stage of your life, to keep abreast of what's happening, to develop yourself as well. So you lead by example. I liked very much what you said, a leader of a successful team, which is very important, to lead a successful team first, to be fair, to be insightful, to be confident. And this was probably one of the best answers we received thus far. Now I want to delve in and go a bit deeper into the Sarantis group so you can answer a few questions for us, because you came in at a very turbulent time. And not for the group, I'm talking about turbulent time for the whole world. So my question is, the past 2 years have been very challenging for businesses. What do you believe are the main challenges that leaders face when navigating the complexity and uncertainty that this decade has brought? And just before you answer this, dear friends and fans, please send in your questions so that we can go live with Christoforos and he can answer your questions. Christoforos.
Yeah, again, my team. It's a fantastic opportunity. My Saradians, as I used to call them. I can't really express how proud I am for them and all the fantastic work they have done overall. But disrupting times, as you really, you were spot on, to be honest. It's more about, constantly analyzing the environment. So we are living in the time of disruption. So the only constant is disruption and taxes. We know that, right? So,
And death.
disruption requires change. So, but change needs diagnosis. So you have to analyze the environment in the business context, to fully understand what's really happening in the value chain. Imagine, the launch of, for example, the e-ordering platforms like eFood and all this stuff heavily disrupted the industry value chain for the food delivery. So, you have to be there, you have to know what is happening, you have to see the figures, the shifts, the opportunities, the risk, and at the end of the day, you need to understand what we should be doing. That's the idea. The second important thing as we progress, and of course this needs a bit of time, you need to formulate the value proposition. The recipe to win. What we need to win, what we need to do to win, what we need to create. We have to create value. We have to find ways to capture value, and all this stuff together is, it's more about, it's a matter of choices. It's a matter of, making the right choices for the occasion and develop. I will call it a bit of systemic way of working, something that serves the purpose of the things that you have identified as more critical. And lastly, it's about execution, it's about the organization. In reality, it's about people. What do you need to make it happen? And at the end, who? And which is the most important component from my point of view. You need people with will and skill. You need people that can really understand what you are going to do and find their way. It's our responsibility as leaders to make their contribution more meaningful, more productive, by expressing very clearly what we need from them. In the UK, used to say what we bring in the party. So to have a successful party, and that's a key concept for me.
Very good. Will and skill, and also be there. Choose the right people. I remember I heard once a proverb that really resonated with me. It said that first-rate people hire first-rate people, while second-rate people hire third-rate people. So having senior people both in action and on stage, I have to say that they're first-rate, my friend. Next question, because we also have a lot of questions coming in. For the past 3 years, you have been leading a team that has been successful during these challenging times. You have also mentioned that as your team grows, you would like to bring more structure and give your team ownership, give ownership to your people. How does one set the scene for strategic transformations of big organizations the size of the Sarantis Group?
Yeah, let me put it this way. Many of the things that addresses this question is what I just said before. But first of all, let me elaborate a bit on the opportunity. Transformation, it's a long-term process for sure. All right, but the times are really fast, very fast-paced. So a good mentor of mine, mentor, coach, line manager in the past when I was in Africa, Alex Woma, said that we're discussing about a business, and he said, this is very difficult. Why is difficult, Alex? It's very difficult because it's like changing a wheel in a moving vehicle. Come on, Alex.
Wow.
This is nearly impossible. So, and it was a fantastic moment for me. Like someone who really enjoys solving complex issues, complex problems. Said no, it's a Formula One pit stop. So why not to make sure that we grow a team that can be acting like a Formula One pit stop team. So, and the challenges that we face when we see that, in reality, there are 3 or 4. So you need to understand that it's important to make decisions and decisions that don't need to be very precise, roughly right, not precisely wrong, as I used to say, and try to get a true consensus. Consensus matters because it has to do with the execution. A true consensus, though, not a political consensus.
Yes, yes, I understood.
The second thing is change. The change is a long process. You know, first of all, you have to ensure that the team and yourself, you are resilient. You can deal with the challenges. You should be contagious in terms when it comes to positivity. And the final thing, you have to have perspective. You have to have a helicopter or a balcony view, keep distance to see what is really happening. But change requires a vision, requires to visualize a better future, to engage with resistors, to get feedback, to keep up the momentum, mobilize the team. You have to be there. I mean, you have to actively manage change, both programmatic and the one who has to happen overnight, like the times we lived in the near past with a pandemic. And the last two things that I want to mention is you have to be more political. Political, what I mean by that, people, especially in the business context, believe that there is a negative connotation. No, political comes from the Greek word politis, which means you are a citizen. And our businesses are like small societies. So you have to act as a citizen. You have to fully utilize your power, your social power, for the greater good, for the good of the team. So it's important to understand we're a part of in an ecosystem. But I'm heading to the last comment on it is the culture. You have to deal with the culture. Transformation without culture shift, without focus on it, cannot happen for sure. What they used to say that and I strongly believe that on a humorous note first, it's culture strategy. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. But on a serious note now is that strategy allows managers to set objectives and goals, but culture to achieve them. Very important for all to understand. So transformation, I think the most important element is a cultural shift that we are moving to transformational agenda.
Christoforos, if I knew you would be delivering such gems, I would have you on every week. But I didn't know, to be honest. I had a feeling. So what I'm keeping from this is that successful people like yourselves have mentors and they listen to their mentors and they try to envision a future of how the mentor describes it. So changing a wheel whilst a car is moving is almost impossible, but having people deciding in a pit stop to move quickly, fast, not getting it precisely right, but not getting it precisely wrong, but somewhere in between can make companies very agile. And last but not least, Intel was right when they said disagree but commit. You need consensus. You can disagree in a meeting, but then when you come out of that meeting, you need to have consensus.
One voice, I agree, fully agree.
One voice. I was about to ask you something about values, but we have a lot of questions coming in. And
my favorite subject is values,
I know it's your favorite. I have a feeling I will ask it, but we also have a question that great. Covers it. But my question is, just in case it's not covered, because I have to read at the same time that I ask the questions, how important are values for your corporate culture? How important is for a company to have values for their corporate culture?
Okay, values is the corporate values, and the values for all of us are very important for sure. I mean, I don't know if there's something more important, knowing that your values drives your action, your thoughts, your actions, your beliefs, and all this stuff. But when it comes to corporate values, I think it's are important due to the fact that it's one of the major components of the corporate culture. I think this is something that we need to focus and find ways to, first of all, to articulate them, to make sure that they are relevant for the context that we operate in. And the other two things that consist the corporate culture is what we call artifacts and assumptions. And I will explain. Let me elaborate a bit. I think they are more important than the values due to the fact the artifacts is what we see in every day. What is really visible? The actual behaviors. Do we say good morning? Do we really mean it? Are we when we are in a meeting? Do we have, you know, our full attention to the presenter? Do we consider what he says? Are we listening to reply, or are we listening to understand? There are so many things that you see. So the artifact is something that you need to work in it before you establish or you try to share your values. The values, you know, we call the corporate values are espoused values. It's the values that we put on the wall. Is what we share, what the wish list. That's what we would like to see. However, there are other things like assumptions, beliefs actually, what the inner rules in people's heads. So you have to share it, you have to have a deeper look. You have to understand it's things, it's about things like, you know, take that for granted. This department does it this way. All this stuff are, you know, believe we have always done it this way. Or, you know, we did it in the past and it failed. So this has to be challenged, in my view, before you move to corporate values. And the corporate values is about, you know, giving the people the context to make decisions. I mean, the most relevant term, for my understanding, is that values-based decision making. So people have context of making. That's why it's important.
I loved it. I loved it. It's the wish list, but artifacts, even from the word A, comes before the word V, value. So artifacts, lead by example. It's what you see inside the company and outside the company, how people act, and then the wish list comes, which goes onto the wall.
Michael, allow me one word. I think worth sharing this with the audience is that a few years ago I was asked by Johnson & Johnson to build a business from scratch, the J&J West Africa in Nigeria. So the head of the global legal counsel of J&J, an American Nigerian, it was a lady, Mrs. Angela Nwaneri, a very bright person. I'm telling you, very bright person. She traveled to Nigeria and we went out for a lunch. And she said, "Look, Chris." So we were discussing about values, about credo, which is the values context of J&J. And she said, "The only thing I want from you is to build a company that you wish your children to work for." That was a very powerful statement if you think about it. And it was all about values. It was about integrity. It was about honesty. It was about transparency. It was about, you know, modernity. All these stuff are there.
Amazing. Amazing. I love what you share. A company that your children wish they worked for. Amazing. So Christoforos, let's take a few questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
The first question comes from Stavros Therapondos. He wishes us a great week. I would like to ask, how can a leader communicate the core values of the organization, and how can one encourage others to communicate these core values?
I think important thing is like a pre-work when it comes to communication. So I will say we did that. I did that twice in my life, being part of a team that actually did that. The identification of the values. So you work by building them or find them with a team. What are the more relevant values that defines us? Then I think in terms of instilling them every day, first of all, you have to attack the artifacts. You have to challenge the assumptions, what I said just before. Then it's very clear, you have to have clarity, and you have to be the message has to be very strong and powerful. What is expected in terms of norms, in terms of behaviors, and in my view, needs a bit of strategic clarity. If it's strategic, it's important. So people know that this is important. You have to accept, again, that it takes time. So you have to be patient with the people, and find small things to highlight them in everyday interaction. Small actions for sure, and work on the context to change the behavior. You cannot change the individual. You have to work in the context and link the value to the occasion, to the circumstance. For example, I cannot really say that in my values is excellence and accept that something is less than good or on average. You have to express it in a nice way. But on the other hand, you have to set the bar at a high level. Say, look, in line with our values, this has to be excellent. This has to be the best. This has to be the benchmark. And all this stuff. There are so many examples. Sustainable product development, for example, sustainability in the broader, with the broader meaning of sustainability. So when I say to my people, develop products in a sustainable way, I cannot really discuss wrong practices when it comes to packaging, when it comes to ingredients, when it comes to to the sourcing and all this stuff. So you have to link them in an everyday way and explain, debate, explain, challenge the people.
This is the difference.
Takes time. We have to admit that takes time and consistency matters.
This is the difference between a practitioner and somebody who just only talks about theory. One question without running the risk of going long into an explanation. How does one attack the artifacts? You said you have to attack the artifacts. How do you attack it?
I think this is the time that you have to be more strict. So if you go, we'll share an example. Actually, I faced it many times, and it's one of the things that I believe is to be corrected. You go into a room, a meeting room. The audience are 20 people. You have a very important presentation to make for the plan of the quarter or whatever, but important. And out of the 20 people, 19 have their laptops open, and they look at their laptops. So this time is the time of the leader to say, turn off the laptops, all. Turn your chairs to the presenter, and let's give him our full attention because the matter is important. So it's, yes, you have to be well-mannered for sure, but sometimes you need to be strict and say, look, this is not right at the end of the day. If it's not right, it means that it's not in the right, we don't have the value system.
Okay, very good.
Our values when it comes to the meeting and the attendance and the attention actually is wrong. So we need to fix it. Of course, there are so many examples. I mean,
this example.
If someone doesn't say a good morning, why? It's a good morning. It's 2 words. If you make it count, it's even more powerful than we think. A smile. Listen, people. But listen. Wow. Be humane at the end of the day. Right? Be a human being.
I don't want to end this interview. We have another question from the head of the business school at University College London, one of the best universities in the world. So this is my friend Richard Pettinger. This is his question, Christoforos. How do you decide if someone is a bad player or if they just do not understand what is expected of them? So are they a bad player or they just don't understand what is expected of them?
That's a great question. And recently, last week actually, I had a fantastic example. I will never forget that. When you develop, I have the pleasure, actually, I'm very happy about it. I've been working with this team for 3 years. So we have developed a system, culture. We know we have our Sarantian way, let me put it this way. The time that an individual is not performing in line with the expectations, in line with our value system, in line with our culture, then the whole system sees him as someone, as a virus. So are the ones who identified him or her as a bad player. So the organization is the one that pushes out the people that don't deliver in line with the team's objectives. It's a fantastic insight for me, and I didn't have to do anything, to be honest with you. The corrective actions, the feedback, the whole thing around correcting improving the performance came from the team and not from the group of managers or the leadership team. I think this is one thing. But however, you have to be very clear what is expected from them. It's very clarity matters. If I don't know if I have addressed the question.
You have. Clarity matters, and the sea will throw things out. Throw things out at the end of the day. One last question. We have more, but let me have one last question. I'll take you back to your early years. It's been asked by one of my best friends, Vaso Vardaki, an amazing coach and an amazing person. Here is the question, Christoforos. Very interesting conversation. Thank you, Vasos. Question for Christoforos. If you had the chance to give one advice to the 25-year-old Christoforos that you knew it would make a difference, what would that be, my friend?
Yeah, that's a good one again. I would have gone to the US. I had the opportunity to go to the US and study at the age of 25. And I think I needed that kind of exposure back then. This is the only thing I regret. I believe that I have the potential to study in a top university, in an Ivy League university, and but at that point of time, it wasn't really easy for me. I regret, but at the end of the day, I don't as well. It's okay. That's what it is.
Yes, we cannot turn back time, and but I'm telling you, if anyone from the US is watching us, they would regret you didn't go to their country. I love how insightful you were, and you are. Christoforos, one last message for our audience, our community, just before I wrap up and call it a day, even though I don't want to, but please, one last message for anyone who's listening in, the leaders, the aspiring leaders, the managers, people who are going through difficult times or prosperous times. One last message, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing for me, and this is a core belief, we are dealing with people. So we have to act like dealing with people, with human beings. Not too much sophistication, just be humane. Your approach has to be humane. This doesn't mean that you have to be kind all the time. You need to set limits, you need to drive people, you need to motivate them, you need to hold them accountable. But at the end of the day, you need to say, well done, you need to say bravo, you need to say, you have to do it this way, you have to get feedback and all this stuff. So, but at the end of the day, it's human to human. And we should never forget that. It's human to human. So we have to be human.
Very true. Thank you, Christoforos. So in wrapping up, my dear friends, let me say that his mother called him a leader before the world knew about Christoforos Stamoulakatos. We have seen his leadership qualities today in this episode. I'm so happy he contacted me after 8 years that we've met each other in Greece. And I consider now that I truly have a great friend and a person that I can turn to if I need advice. Christoforos looks up to his mentors, and one of his mentors told him that it's very difficult trying to make changes. It's like trying to change the wheel of a moving car, but there are pit stops, according to Christoforos, where we can make the necessary changes. The leader has to be insightful. He or she has to be up to date with what's happening. And that leader should also try to get and reach consensus. They might disagree in a room, but they have to come out as one voice. At the end of the day, it's H to H, human to human. It's not B2B, business to business, or business to consumer. It's H to H, human to human, and we need to be humane. Thank you very much, Christoforos, for a very insightful interview. Thank you for your time, and thank you to everyone who has tuned in. There are more questions coming in. I will send them to Christoforos, and maybe he can go one-on-one and answer them for you on paper. Thank you very much, Christoforos.
It was my pleasure, indeed. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you. Thank you.